Bloodborne! The hunter's dream is real!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right, need to turn my audio back to 6 like it normally is. Nope, not 10. 6, there we go. Classic name. It seems to be the best. From what people say. Or really choose, so I'm gonna choose this guy. I still don't know how to change your hair. I'm going to go look that up. Yo, base, this is the canon look for the character. Apparently. Just gonna make them look as cool as possible. I'm going to make them look as much like me as I possibly can. My skin is so white that it practically glows when I'm outside. I just wanted to see what that looks like. Yep, this definitely looks like me. Anyway, that's pretty much me. My eyes are watering. Just looking at my character's skin. Well, time to ask Yosefka why he locked me up in prison. Yosefka, why did you lock me up in prison? Why are you a middle-aged old man that's in their 80s? Hey, can you come at me, bro? Come at me, bro. Let's see if I remember how to do the skip. No. Looks like I won't be able to do the skip. I'm so scared. I am incredibly scared. God. Oh. How do I two-hand again? hate this game. I hate this game so much. It's just bullets. Oh no. Anyway, I have no blood vials. I think I'm gonna look for the ladder. There's a ladder in this area, right? I saw an item that has to be a blood vial, right? Yeah, 2 blood vials, I knew it. It always has to be a blood vial. And I heard footsteps. Then I just might let him kill me. Because I don't want to waste any blood vials. Where is he? Very scared. Where's the man? I found the man. Yo, that's literally me. Yo, I died. He killed me to death. Who would even do that? That's illegal. Literally. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go with the classic choice. Charge. Charge at me. Charge. I'm not giving listeners the satisfaction of killing me. him off so not killing him. He almost died. I have amazing reaction time. Almost died there. HP check. What? I am very confused. That guy climbed can ladder.
Seth went on to study computer science in college and afterwards would acquire a job at Microsoft. Seth would be introduced to Minecraft from a college roommate around 16 he found the sandbox interesting in gaming area. He played it for about a month. Obviously this was not a few months later, Seth registered Seth Lee posted his first YouTube video on January 10, 2011, showcasing a Minecraft custom. Work by using a presentation on items in Minecraft. If the player would use Minecraft, pick up the item and now the Minecraft his first videos were made on beta versions of the game and recorded Now before we continue, let's go down, smash the subscriber, so close to 1K. Seth would make more videos than no other player. Seth was far ahead of his time and he was the most advanced Minecraft redstone creator at that time. While other players were creating simple mob traps and minecart tracks, he was busy experimenting with vertical redstone wiring and even recreating Minesweeper in Minecraft. With his first video in January 2011, Seth would begin uploading frequently, sharing his creations with the community. With the release of beta version 1.7 on June 30, 2011, which saw the addition of pistons to the game, Seth then creates his first video about pistons, titled Piston Science. He would showcase how pistons work and the various uses for them. Pistons would open up a whole new avenue for Seth, enabling a much wider array of redstone creations. One of his earliest piston creations was an inescapable piston prison, which involved a 1x2 space that would enclose a player. The blocks around the player would be constantly moving back and forth by pistons, never staying still long enough for the player to break them. As a result, the player was stuck in the trap indefinitely until someone else got them out. He would also create a semi-automatic cobblestone farm, similar to many that are seen today. The farm used a cobblestone generator and TNT. However, at the time there was no way to do TNT or even ignite it with a dispenser, so Seth built an advanced TNT dispensing system. One of Seth's earliest discoveries was using minecarts on curved tracks would cause them to move faster every time.
He would later make a caterpillar conveyor based on a design by Ethos Lab that made it twice as fast. The design used pistons to transport players in a diagonal direction at high speeds. Both of these concepts are seen in piston bolts today, a form of transportation which uses both curved minecart tracks and piston propulsion to accelerate players to high speeds. Around this time, Seth would also begin making different games in Minecraft using Redstone, the first being Connect 4. He would go on to recreate various other games, including Mousetrap and Hungry Hungry Hippos. Fast forward to 2012, and the Sethbling YouTube channel was growing rapidly, with thousands of people interested in his Redstone creations. His innovative ideas would lead him to reach 100,000 subscribers on YouTube in March 2012. He would make a 100,000 subscriber video in which he released a single-player version of his game, Pit Frenzy. The game involved knocking mobs into a pit, which in turn would close off the pit. Closing all pits would unlock a power-up which was crucial to progressing in the game. The game was a 1v1 battle with the player lasting the longest becoming the winner. In the same month, he would release what he named the Minecraft Teleportation Spell. The spell was actually an enderpearl propulsion system using TNT, first of its kind. The player would place 4 TNT around themselves and then a pressure plate in the middle to ignite the TNT. The player would then walk back and throw an enderpearl at the exact moment for it to be propelled by the TNT. It took a bit of skill, but once mastered was capable of transporting the player 100 to 200 blocks in an instant. While working at Microsoft, Seth would spend almost all his free time playing Minecraft and recording videos. He would quit his job in April of 2012 to pursue YouTube full-time. Notch would also retweet a video by Sethbling in September of 2012, showcasing a redstone-controlled map display in Minecraft, which would automatically switch between different map designs with the click of a button. Seth would go on to reach 300,000 subscribers 1 month later in October 2012, and then in November of that year created the Instant Cobblestone Wall Generator. This device generated a whole wall using lava and water. The concept is still widely used in the game mode factions to this day, with players generating walls around their bases. Sethbling continued revolutionizing Minecraft Redstone, and it wasn't long before he reached 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. He would make a special titled 500 Seconds of Sethbling.
Welcome back, Sethbling here. My channel just reached 500,000 subscribers, 500,000. I'm really grateful for that, so I thought we could take a fun look back at just how we got here.
On April 1st, 2013, Seth would join the well-known Minecraft server, becoming the leader on his arrival.
I think I've made the decision to step down as the runner of Minecraft, and in my place, I'm bringing on someone new that you guys are all going to love. Here he is.
Woo! Hey guys, it's Sethbling. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm running the server now.
This was of course an April Fool's joke. He would, however, make a Let's Play series on the server, which at the time had players teaming up and competing with the Dragon. The server was ultra hardcore, meaning players did not naturally heal, and Seth would spend a lot of the series on very low health. For the entirety of the last episode, he would play with only 1 heart, until he was tragically killed in his team's attempt to slay the Ender Dragon. He would continue to make videos on the Minecraft server, and some of his latest videos to this day are on there. In a later video on Minecraft, Seth would showcase a bridge he had built, proving that redstone was not his only specialty. Seth's popularity on YouTube would continue to skyrocket, and in July 2013, he would reach 1 million subscribers. He would release a recreation of the popular Plants vs Zombies game, Blocks vs Zombies. He would continue creating games in Minecraft, pioneering the classic Spleef game mode with his version, Pizza Spleef, in which you ate the pizza toppings for different power-ups. The date was February 2013, and Sethbling had just created his famous 15 seconds Minecraft map. The player had 15 seconds to complete a stage, otherwise they would be killed and have to start again. The map was extremely popular, with various YouTubers playing it, such as Captain Sparkles and Ant Venom, with videos gathering millions of views. Seth had also started incorporating command blocks into his creations, and in May 2014, he would create his famous magic nether portal in Minecraft. The portal would allow the player to peer directly into the nether and used a very advanced command block system. The system calculated the plane of stability for the player and replaced those blocks with a nether template, creating the illusion that the player was looking into the nether. Perhaps one of Sethbling's most incredible creations that use command blocks would be his working Atari 2600 emulator, built in December of 2013. The Atari 2600 was a game console released in 1977 and featured games like Donkey Kong and Space Invaders. The creation used around 2,000 command blocks and would render the game onto a screen, all created in Minecraft. Fast forward to 2019, and Seth creates an infinite storage system that works by compressing minecart chests into a finite space. The system had an interface interface for selecting chests you would like, and it would sort the chest and give you the correct one. In May of this year, Seth would also appear in a video by the Minecraft YouTube channel titled Meet a Minecrafter, Seth Bling, part of a documentary series about different Minecrafters. Aside from pioneering redstone mechanics, Seth Bling has also created many famous Minecraft maps, with millions of downloads combined. Dust Bowl was a map that Seth created in collaboration with Hypixel and was based off of the game Team Fortress 2. The map involved different classes and two teams, red and blue. It used advanced redstone and command model mechanics for class selection, among other things. The blue team was tasked with capturing points, while the red team were defending them, trying to run out the clock before all points were captured. His most famous map, Skygrid, was sitting at just over 800,000 downloads on Planet Minecraft. Skygrid was a Minecraft world set up in a grid, with a 3-block gap between each block. You can do anything you would in a normal Minecraft world in Skygrid, just in a more challenging way. Similar to Skyblock, players would usually create a cobblestone generator and a tree farm early on in each Skygrid world, giving them a source of building blocks. The map was insanely popular and was used on many different Minecraft servers. The famous Minecraft TNT Olympics was an Olympics in Minecraft, but with TNT. Events included a javelin throw, where a player had to shoot an arrow, the javelin, at the right time to launch it by exploding TNT. High and long jump, hurdles, rowing, and swimming, among others. The map sits at 572,000 downloads on Planet Minecraft, and has been played by many notable YouTubers, including Captain Sparkles, Ant Venom, and Ethos Lab. Seth was a pioneer of Minecraft Redstone and paved the way for many modern-day redstone mechanics and creations. If you had watched Minecraft YouTube back in the day and someone mentioned redstone, there was probably one name that came to mind. Not only did Seth come up with incredible redstone creations, but he did it in an entertaining way that attracted millions of views to his videos. He has uploaded a total of 1,103 videos, with views totaling 640 million, and although he no longer uploads redstone videos, he has certainly left his mark on Minecraft. Seth wasn't just another YouTube creator, but an inventor, a Minecraft redstone fanatic, if you will. He was extremely passionate about redstone and would spend countless hours perfecting his creations. He was truly ahead of his time and created things no one even thought possible. To this day, he is still recognized by many as the father of Minecraft redstone. The man that inspired millions to create redstone creations of their own. The man that made the impossible possible. The man that will forever be known as the legend of Minecraft redstone. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time.
If you think you know the story,
I always envisioned you as being taller. No, smaller actually.
think again.
Disney
Invites you to the land of magic. Neverland.
On November 15, 2008, a Flash development company called Nitro released Toxic 2, a game that would eventually be completely torn apart by just 3 speedrunners, who found and utilized a multitude of glitches and movement exploits to collectively set 40 any percent world records. However, contextualize what this game is, why it's important, and how it came to be, it's necessary to go back a little bit further. In 2004, a graphic designer named Matt Annell was sick of churning out Flash advertisement games with little creative control. So he decided to approach another graphic designer named Heather Stanfield with the idea to found a mobile video game development company. Though Heather was initially reluctant, mainly since she had no prior experience with programming, she eventually obliged. And on August 10th, 2004, Nitro was born. Their first independent project was a Java mobile game called Chick Flip. where the player must maneuver two squirrels holding a trampoline to bounce some chickens into the nest in the middle. However, in 2005, a pared-down version of Flash called Flashlight started gaining more traction on mobile devices after Adobe's acquisition of Macromedia, the original developer of Flash. Matt and Heather decided to put together an extremely basic Flashlight game called Foreplay, which was just a Connect 4 clone with some weird alien-looking characters. To have enough funding to market their independent games, Nitrom continued to make commissioned Flash games, such as this advert game for Wallace and Gromit. However, they still lacked the capital to give Chick Flick a proper mobile release and decided to cancel it by the end of the year. The Nitrom crew redirected their efforts towards making web games, which had a much wider potential reach and were generally a more effective way to make money thanks to the sponsorship opportunities provided by Flash websites like Miniclip, Congregate, Armor Games, and more. With Matt's brother John having joined the team in May, Nitrom had the resources necessary to make their first foray into the browser game scene, and on December 6th, they released Hot Air, a game where the player uses a propeller to guide a hot air balloon through 25 levels while dodging various obstacles. While the gameplay mechanics were quite basic, Hot Air's most defining features were its art design, crafted by John and Matt, and its 8-bit music, written by someone named Lee Nickel. While it wasn't unheard of in 2005 for Flash games to utilize pixel art as opposed to bitmap or vector graphics, it certainly wasn't common, and the ones that did just didn't have this level of polish. Nitrom was clearly trying to establish a unique brand that would set their games apart from the rest of the competition, something that they would propagate with their next release called Sandman, where the player must place down mounds of sand to guide some sleepwalkers back to bed, clearly inspired by the MS-DOS game Lemmings. Next up, Nitrom decided to make some lemonade out of their lemons by releasing Chick Flick as a browser game. From there, they just continued with their same successful formula, making several unique, fleshed-out games, with Matt and John doing art design, Heather doing programming, and Lee writing the music. By mid-2007, Nitrom had created over a dozen unique IPs. So, expectedly, they caved to the inevitable and released their first sequel, Hot Air 2, which was essentially just a 20-level expansion of the original game. 2 releases later, Nitrom created a 2D platformer featuring a hazmat hero who is trying to destroy a radioactive robot factory, marked by a strange prevalence of green acid. This game, of course, was called Toxic, and it had 20 levels filled with plenty of hazards, including spikes, lasers, acid, and 7 different kinds of robots. To progress through each level, it is necessary to use an assortment of different bomb types to remove sections of the light gray ground. However, this must be done carefully, because the player can only take 4 hits from bombs and hazards before dying, and there is no way to regenerate health. Touching the acid pool at the bottom will also result in an instant death. Though there isn't much to do in the game aside from just beating each level, there are a bounty of power cells to collect along the way. And speaking of bounties, as a result of all of the support you have given this channel over the past 3 years, I have had the ability to distribute over $2,000 in bounty and tournament winnings to dozens of people in the Flash game speedrunning community, which has helped facilitate some truly incredible moments and accomplishments. However, with this video, I wanted to put up some sizable bounties to help kickstart Toxic 2 speedrunning again. And to make that possible, this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN, a virtual private network that encrypts all of your internet traffic, masking both your IP address and your location. And it actually came in clutch while making this very video. In case you weren't aware, your internet service provider is able to throttle your traffic from any source, including online games and streaming services, at any time. I experienced this firsthand when YouTube videos randomly started taking almost 10 seconds to load, which was significantly impacting my ability to work on this project. Thankfully, by using Surfshark to change my IP and location, the issue cleared up instantly. Additionally, it is absolutely essential to use a VPN to encrypt all of your internet traffic when using public Wi-Fi networks, which can often be compromised in some way. The last thing you want is for a man-in-the-middle attack to turn your YouTube channel into the next hub for scam cryptocurrency livestreams. So, get Surfshark today to start taking your online privacy and security more seriously. And use code MAXIMUM to get 83% off and 3 months free. Or click the link at the top of the description. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there is no risk in trying it out. Thank you again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. So anyways, Toxic was certainly a unique 2D platformer that had a pretty good foundation, but it had some aspects that held it back from truly standing out. Namely, its sluggish, clunky movement mechanics, and the over-reliance on bombs as a means of getting through each level. With more polish, it certainly had the potential to be a really great game. And thankfully, a year later, Nitrom decided to revisit Toxic by releasing a full-fledged sequel, Toxic 2, on November 25th, 2008. Similar to Hot Air sequel, Toxic 2 had bosses in levels 10 and 20 named Bigfoot and Bunny. However, dissimilar to Hot Air 2, Toxic sequel was more or less a complete overhaul of the original game. Everything about the movement was just way more responsive. The graphics were a lot more polished, the number of robot types was doubled from 7 to 14, conveyor belts and temporary platforms were added, and there were 10 additional levels that could be accessed by finding secret blue teleporter exits in some of the main levels. The power cells had a much more intentional function, as there were exactly 500 to collect across the game's 30 levels, with plenty of them being located outside the beaten path. Each level had at least one defining feature that made it stand out from the rest of the pack, which is usually referenced in the title that each one is given. Also, the game had an opening and closing cutscene that better showcased its story, with the Hazmat hero entering Toxic 2's factory to destroy whatever is controlling the machines that have apparently overrun the planet, which turns out to be the mother boss that is fought in level 20. Overall, the game was a huge step up over the original by almost every metric, and its extremely tight movement mechanics meant that it certainly had a lot of potential from a speedrunning standpoint. That sentiment would only grow as casual players quickly found out that Toxic 2 is completely must. Indeed, a large portion of the videos of this game that showed up on YouTube were of people showing off various glitches and exploits that they had found. Just 2 days after release, Running From My Shadow demonstrated that, in level 7.1, if you stand right here when the temporary blocks show up, the player will just start sinking into the ground, hitting the acid below if nothing is done. Alternatively, you could scale the segmented pillar by repeatedly pressing the jump key, and if a crouch position is held before the blocks disappear again, yeah. The next day, Perder showed off that it is possible to completely cheese the final boss by just throwing more bombs into its cavity right before it closes back up, damaging the boss and reopening the cavity, allowing the cycle to be repeated until the boss is finished off. The same day, Darkbones99 exited the level 10 boss arena while the gates were closing with a well-timed jump. This, of course, only served the purpose of soft-locking the level, as you cannot damage Bigfoot while outside the arena. Sadly, as Will9831 commented, you unfortunately aren't able to exit early from the right side, which would allow you to reach the teleporter to go to the next level without ever having to fight the boss. However, a far more exciting development came on December 2nd, when our old friend Running From My Shadow showcased a pretty huge shortcut in level 1. Normally, you are required to platform to the right, place a bomb against this wall 4 times to open up the corridor, and then platform upward and to the left to reach the teleporter. However, Shadow showed that you can just do this right near the start. This technique, which is now called wall scaling, is extremely simple to pull off. When you start sliding on a wall, you simply tap the opposite direction to initiate a wall jump instead of shifting the key presses. The player will immediately start moving back towards the wall, and if the tap was short enough, you will actually land higher up on the wall than where you started, where the technique can be repeated as many times as needed. Because of how dead simple this is to do, it is unknown whether it was intentional or not, but regardless, it allowed for level 1's completion time to be cut from almost a minute to potentially under 15 seconds, and it was bound to have other uses elsewhere in the game. Other glitch and exploit videos continued to surface, showing a temporary block clip that could be performed in level 9, killing the final boss in less than 40 seconds, a stand-on-air glitch when starting the final fight, crouch sliding onto thin air, a way to cheese the Bigfoot fight by scaling the right wall, the ability to simply walk in place, and the ability to not immediately die in acid pools by wall sliding. Additionally, there were tons of people showing off speedy completions of individual levels in the game. However, despite all this interest in Toxic 2's mechanics, nobody seemed to take a stab at doing a full speedrun of the game. This was the era of YouTube when video uploads were limited to 11 minutes long, which just wasn't enough time to store a full completion. People may have been doing runs on their own, but there is just no evidence to show for it. In fact, it wouldn't be until 8 years later, 2016, that Toxic 2's first world record would be set. On May 11th, 2016, a runner named Americus performed a speedrun of the original Toxic in 14 minutes and 49 seconds. This would ultimately quick start a brief record competition with another runner named Gazette, eventually stalling with Americus achieving a 12 flat on July 16th. Content with his time, he decided to move on to speedrunning Toxic 2, and with his first stab at it, he claimed a 1:22:04 on July 21st, which he easily improved to a 2019 10 days later after properly routing the game. He closed things off by getting a 14:58 on October 4th. However, he still hadn't recorded any other runs, and a leaderboard for the game had yet to be established. So let's fast forward to 2017, which is the year that I first got into speedrunning Flash games, as I competed with DHA for records in Run 2. In August, one of my best friends, who was aware of my newly found hobby, showed me some Flash games that he had gotten quite good at playing when he was younger, namely Super Mario 63 and Toxic 2. As an interesting tidbit, this is the same friend that would go on to draw, in about 3 minutes, the character that you see on screen right now. A character that has essentially become the brand for my entire online presence. I had played SM63 in the past, but I had never even heard of Toxic 2 or Nitrom as a whole for that matter, likely due to the site being blocked on the computers back in elementary school. Upon sitting down to play the game for the first time, it took just a matter of minutes for me to figure out the wall scaling shortcut in level 1.
I don't think I got this in my first playthrough.
Fluid movement, and I instantly knew that it was going to become my next speed game. I never got the chance to play
I thought that was the music box for the
new ways to apply wall scaling and
cheese for the one guy.
speedrun. I recorded a run of 21:05, which implemented quite a few wall scaling optimizations. I performed a shortcut in level 1, skipped activating 2 sets of temporary blocks in level 9, did the right wall cheese strat in the Bigfoot boss fight, and skipped some temporary blocks in 14. In level 15, you are supposed to explode bombs in these pink checkerboard areas to create ground that the player is able to walk on. However, with a wall scale here and some daring movement later in the level, I was able to reach the end without throwing a single bomb. Additionally, a frame-perfect wall scale was used here in level 19 to skip some platforming to the right, and a normal scale on the spike wall was used to skip activating the second set of temporary blocks. Another important theme to note is the prevalence of damage boosting through spikes, enemies, and bomb explosions whenever possible. Granted, enough health has been budgeted to do so. The run was complete garbage, with me losing over 4 minutes from blunders in level 19, but I just needed something to be able to get the game added to speedrun.com through the Nitrom series. I went on to create a Discord server that served as a hub for all things related to Nitrom speedrunning, which is how I learned about Americus' unrecorded 14:58, which became my new goal time to beat. The same day that Americus had posted that image, another runner named Connor McMahon had joined the server, who had been running Skywire for the past 2 weeks, which was a game released by Nitrom in 2007. Connor was originally set on playing various Nitrom games that nobody had ever speedrun before to build out a nice first place trophy case on his speedrun.com profile. However, after seeing that Toxic 2 had some activity, he decided that he may as well give the game a go. While I was slowly whittling my time down to that 14:58, Connor easily outpaced me and leaped into the first place spot with a 14:46 on September 16th, 2017. The run used very similar strategies to the 21:05, but Connor had figured out a small optimization in level 4 where he placed 3 miner bombs on the ground near the start to dig out some of the ground below, which is supposed to skip a bomb placement later in the level, though he ended up being left with a sliver of ground that he still had to destroy. He also implemented a far more optimal way of doing level 8, where you wall scale to the top section and jump around while taking damage boost from the lasers. Finally, in level 10, he decided to fight the boss normally instead of doing the cheese strat, which ended up saving him around 15 seconds. With this run, a 3-way record competition between myself, Connor, and Americus was officially born. And with the game still having the potential to go a decent bit lower, we were all eyeing the game's next minute barrier, sub 14. However, before the game's next record could be set, I discovered a new wall clipping method in Toxic 2 that looked like it could actually have some use in runs. After digging out this area at the start of level 4, I performed a jump in this position while facing the left. To my surprise, the character disappeared shortly afterward. I didn't know what was going on at first, But after expanding the window size, I noticed that the player was now stuck on the roof. This strategy, which would eventually become known as an upwarp, was made possible thanks to an oversight with the game's ceiling collision detection and floor snapping. At most times, there are 3 points on the bottom of the player, the left, middle, and right, that the game is checking for overlap with the ground. If a point is determined to be within the ground, the game checks a line of 100 units above that point for any floors. If a floor is found in that 100 unit range, the game snaps the player to that floor. This failsafe is necessary to ensure that the player doesn't just fall through the ground if they happen to clip in by a pixel or two, which happens quite frequently. With this failsafe deactivated in the code, the player immediately starts falling through the floor at the beginning of each level due to always starting a pixel inside of the teleporter. You can also see that contacting any corner is also quite problematic. The problem arises in the fact that the 100 unit range spans more height than the player and an entire block combined. If the game determines the player to be within a wall while the player is right below a block, they will be placed on top of said block. And, for some reason, the game only checks whether the top of the player will collide with a ceiling at points 1, 6, and 12 pixels away from the center in the direction that the player is facing. So, let's represent the region where the game is effectively checking for collision with a box. You may be able to see the problem. As long as at least half of the player is not above the ceiling upon jumping while facing the opposite direction, the player will clip inside of the ceiling. Once the player has clipped far enough inside, the applicable floor snap checkpoint will realize that it is inside of a wall, and once the player starts falling, the 100 unit line check will start being executed every frame. The game notices a floor that the player can stand on within this region, the ceiling, and snaps them to it, completing the upward. Unfortunately, the areas in the game that this technique could be performed on were few and far between. In fact, on my first pass, I wasn't able to find a single place in any of the game's 30 levels where the glitch could be used in a way that saved time. Thus, it simply remained in the back of my mind as the record competition continued. On September 23, 2017, I claimed my first record with a 14:24, simply saving time over Connor by having slightly better execution of the same strategies. 4 days later, he punched in a 14:13, with him nailing the early bomb strat in level 4 and taking a slightly different approach at the end of level 15. The run was easily on pace to be the first sub-14 going into level 20, but he sadly died after getting caught in the boss's regeneration flip, costing about 20 seconds. The first person to get a sub-14 would end up being Americans, who got a 13:46 on September 30th. He struggled a bit in level 8, had an extremely strange occurrence with this wheel robot in level 11, and he took things safe in level 15 by creating ground at the start of the bomb, which cost around 5 seconds. Connor snapped back the same day with a 13:27, which had a death in level 13 that cost over 15 seconds. Certain that 12 more seconds could be saved elsewhere in the run, Connor became the first to firmly declare that a sub-13 was possible, and that became the new goal that everyone was going for. Americus was the next to strike, setting a 13:16 on October 1st, which incorporated the risky wall scale in 15 and had an accidental upwarp in level 17 that saved a bit of time, something which unfortunately was not able to be done consistently. Connor snapped back with a 13:06 on October 4th, mainly thanks to him cleaning up that death in 13. I finally set another record on October 8th with a 13:05, a run where I spent a considerable amount of time in the level 10 boss fight doing nothing. You see, at this point, we had gotten good enough at the boss fight to realize that if you manage to deplete Bigfoot's health bar before it initiates its first phase of shooting acid onto the floor, which occurs around a minute into the level, the boss just won't die, and subsequent hits won't do anything either, soft-locking the level. This run also had the potential to be the first sub-13 going into the final fight, but I screwed up the boss throws at the start, costing around 6 seconds. With me at a 13:05, Connor at a 13:06, and Americus at a 13:16, the milestone was truly anyone's to grab. And the next day, October 9th, I would ultimately be the one to win the sub-13 race, as I put together a 12:52, which led to all three of us taking a break from any percent. Still, 3 days later, I finally found a use for the upwarp glitch that I had discovered almost a month ago. At this spot in level 16, an upwarp could be used to skip a small section of platforming, saving just a few seconds. But that was it. Nothing substantial enough to really draw people back to the category. In February, while preparing for an online Flash speedrunning marathon, I got a 12:23, a run which implemented an often frame-perfect jump in level 9 from this spike platform to the upper section, coined Fast 9, and the upwarp in level 16. Continuing to mess around with the game, I finally solved a mystery that had been perplexing us speedrunners for quite a while. People noticed that bomb sound effects and screen shaking would curiously occur after attempting to throw bombs during the short cooldown time after taking damage. We chalked this up to just being some kind of visual bug and didn't really think much of it. However, one day, when I was messing around with the runner bombs in level 19, I noticed that I was able to activate the explosion at any point after throwing some phantom bombs during the cooldown. It was likely that the bombs were actually somewhere in the level, so I expanded the window size to find that they were, for some reason, being sent at the top left of the level with their throw velocity maintained. I thought that this was pretty neat, but likely completely useless for runs. That was until I thought of level 16. The top left corner of that level was an open area, with the ledges being just one block too high to be able to wall jump off of them. However, I realized that bomb displacement made it possible to get a bomb on the left ledge. Getting a damage boost from the explosion while at the peak height of a jump would maybe, just maybe, be enough. A strategy that could save almost 15 seconds. Unfortunately, it had taken me almost 30 minutes to hit it just once, so it would likely be a while before it would see use in runs. Bomb displacement works because of a pretty funny bug related to player states. For the animation states that the game allows you to throw bombs, like standing, ducking, jumping, and walking, a point is defined on the sprite that tells the game where the bombs are supposed to appear when the spacebar is pressed. If a bomb is thrown while the player is wall sliding, getting hit, or dying, the action is supposed to be cancelled. However, the hit state that the game checks for is not actually the internal state that the player is put in upon being damaged. Since getting damaged causes a small jump of sorts, the player is put into the jump state. Therefore, the action goes through. But there's a problem. A point is not set on the player's damage sprite for where thrown bombs are supposed to come out of. When the game checks where to place the bomb, it gets not a number in return, which eventually leads to the bomb getting placed at the 0-0 point in the level, which is the top left corner. The code for this game is truly just one big bowl of spaghetti. On March 1st, Connor came back with a record of 12-18, which was basically my 12-23 with a worse level 14 and a much better level 16 and 17. That same day, I got onto a run that started off quite horrible to say the least. 15 seconds behind going into level 16, I decided that I would go for the bomb displacement strategy as a Hail Mary attempt to save the run. I saved time in 17, gold at 18, got fast 19, including a full wall scale up the spike wall, and had a decent boss fight. 12:06. A new minute barrier was on the horizon, and me and Connor desperately wanted to be the first to get it. 3 days later, I would win the sub-12 race by getting an 11:59 without the fast strategies in levels 9, 16, and 19. I was, however, assisted by hitting a faster cycle in level 14, first showed off by Connor, and by placing some bombs here in level 17 to skip a placement at the end, also found by Connor. Later that day, Connor was on pace for an 11:57 into the final fight, but the second set of bombs that he placed down didn't cause damage to the boss, making him end with a 12:04. Even later that same day, I set an 11:56 any percent time during an all-levels run, which is a category where you unlock and complete all 10 of the secret levels on top of the 20 main ones. A few days later, I found myself sitting in class, quite bored, messing around in level 10. It had long been realized that if there were some way to get onto the right at the start of the level before initiating the boss fight, it was likely possible to get past the right gate before it closed and skip the entire thing. This pipe structure looked promising, but a jump would have to be performed a lot higher than the floor level to make it work. I thought a wall jump off the left wall might just do the trick, but this annoying crevice on the left was making it almost impossible to even attempt. However, while I was messing around, I accidentally did this. That crevice The solution was staring us right in the face the entire time. Giddy with excitement, I held down the right button and landed on the ground to the right of the closing door. Bigfoot skip was real, it saved almost a minute, and it was trivially easy to do. All it required was a crouch to get stuck in the crevice, a right tap to get clear of the pipe above, and a jump. Sometimes, a right tap wasn't even required due to the player already slightly clipping inside the pipe from the crouch. When I got home, I threw together a pretty lackluster 11-13 with the skip, and then an 11-07 that was resurrected by Fast 16. The next day at school, I started poking around in level 20 to try to find any way of up-warping to the ceiling, because it was also known that doing so would allow the ending teleporter to be reached without having to fight the boss. Unfortunately, the two spots in the ceiling that were 1 block thick just didn't yield a conceivable way to up-warp. This spot on the right was promising, but it was unfortunately 2 blocks thick, so no dice. However, I randomly decided to try tapping right while clipped into the pipe, and noticed that I was getting a pixel or 2 higher than I was before, as that collision box had shifted clear of the ceiling on the left. It still wasn't enough height to upwarp, but I had the thought to place a bomb inside of the wall. If I got a damage boost at the peak of my turnaround jump, it would possibly be just enough.
Activate transport.
The camera was bounded by the right arena wall, so I had to perform the rest of the movement on screen. But I eventually managed to reach the teleporter and finish the game without fighting the final boss. I noted that it was still possible to see where the player was going if the game window was expanded far beyond its normal bounds. But since this was an unintended abuse of Flash Player itself, to trivialize something that did require skill, a rule was added to the leaderboard that the game must always be kept at its original aspect ratio. After realizing that Mother's laser could be used as a damage boost, the strategy was found to save up to 15 seconds. Not nearly as much as the Bigfoot skip, but still a considerable amount. With sub-11 more viable than ever, I immediately started doing attempts when I got home. I got onto a run that was ahead of my 1107 into level 20, meaning that I was easily on pace for the milestone. But I got bad RNG with the laser, as it spun clockwise instead of counterclockwise,
Welcome,
which
what
was
is
needed for the trick. So I had to back it up with a bomb placed in the wall. Still, I ended with a 1057, breaking a new minute barrier just 5 days after the previous one. I later realized that the 20 skip wasn't RNG at all, and was rather dependent on which side of the screen the player was on when the laser was activated, left being clockwise and right being counterclockwise. This revelation allowed me to claim a 1035 that same day, again without fast 9, 16, or 19. These 3 strategies, which came to be known as the Gauntlet, due to them being the 3 hardest in the game, saved around half a minute if executed flawlessly. I vowed that I would go for fast 16 in all future any percent attempts, but I ended up not needing to. As on March 21st, I noticed that this spot in level 17 was ripe for a turnaround damage boost upward, something that I, once again, found during class. The upwarp could get you into this power cell room beyond the secret teleporter, and you essentially had to play through the level backwards for a bit to reach the teleporter, ultimately saving over 30 seconds. However, compared to the upwarp in level 20, a bomb was required for the damage boost. The turnaround window was much tighter, it was harder to line up, and it was cycle bound by this moving laser. Thus, the Gauntlet now had a new method, and combined, the 4 strategies saved over a minute compared to the world record. The next day, I got a 1014, just including the 17 upwarp, and 3 days after that, I got a 1003, also hitting fast 19. 4 days later, I got a run with fast 16, saving even more time than usual by damage boosting off of the robot on the right to displace bombs rather than using an explosion. After hitting an even faster 19, I entered level 20 at an unbelievable 9.3 exploits, but I unfortunately got lost off screen and finished with a 944.633, still the first sub 10 by a mile. This whole time, while I had pushed the game from a 1218 to a 944 almost entirely thanks to new discoveries that I had found, Connor was following pretty close behind. Thankfully, Connor had also found a way to take fast 16 from being one of the hardest strategies in the game to one of the easiest, by simply initiating the jump from the teleporter window as opposed to the left side of the room when the first bomb exploded. This makes the player always hit the explosion at the peak of their jump, and by continuing to hold left, getting a wall slide on the left edge was essentially complete. On April 24th, he reclaimed the record with a 942.867 after hitting the new 16 approach and saving some time in level 17 by reincorporating the early bomb placements. The next day, I found a difficult turnaround upward at level 14 that saved around 2 seconds, but due to its very poor risk-to-reward ratio, it mainly served as a possible way to revive it. However, a far more substantial discovery would come on May 1st, when I showed that it was possible to do this in level 4. It had been observed for quite a while that it was possible to clip through really thin segments of wall by running towards them at full speed and then crouching at just the right time. This was usually utilized to avoid having to place another bomb in scenarios where a bomb dug just a bit too short to allow the player to pass through normally, saving some time. The reason this works is because the invisible boundary that determines whether a player has run into a wall actually expands with the sprite when the player crouches. When this boundary is found inside of a wall, the game applies the appropriate amount of velocity in the opposite direction to keep the player from flipping out of bounds. Note that the player will not be pushed backwards when crouching next to a solid wall from a standstill because the game does not perform this check if the player has 0 velocity. Rather, let us consider the case where the wall is thin instead of solid, and the player is at maximum velocity, 12, before initiating the crouch a frame before colliding with the wall. On frame 1, the crouch executes, and the invisible collision boundary instantaneously moves to being beyond the thin wall. The game removes 2 units of velocity from the player, and then checks to see if there are any. However, because the player is not touching the wall, the game gets the go-ahead to move the player forward by 10 units. The process repeats, moving the player forward by 8 units, then 6, then 4, and finally 2, placing the player squarely inside of the thin wall. Upon standing back up, the middle test point on the bottom is found to be inside of the wall, so the player starts to sink, eventually falling forward, skipping around half of the level and saving around 20 seconds. The day the skip was found, I incorporated it into a run to claim a record of 929.1. With my sum of best now being an 840, it was clear that sub 9 had just become barely feasible thanks to the new discovery, and it became the final goal that Connor and I both set our sights upon. Connor came back with a 927.6 on May 6th, and I hit a 926.967 the same day. However, a substantial improvement wouldn't come until Connor set a 913.967 on May 8th, finally reincorporating Fast 9. He was also aided by a much cleaner approach in level 8, and going down with the wheel robot in level 11 to place a bomb on the wall early. The next day, I got a 910.667 without Fast 9 or 19, which completely proved the viability of a sub 9. The race to this final minute barrier was in high gear, and it was getting worse. America's first sub 15 and sub 14, and I was the first sub 13, sub 12, sub 11, and sub 10. After almost a year of close competition, this was Connor's last chance to finally have a minute barrier to himself. May 10th, Connor gets onto a run that is absolutely on sub 9 if he hits Fast 15. However, he jumps too early and loses some time on the slower path. He finishes the run off screen with a 902.567, a massive world record by over 10 seconds, but just short of the sub 9. The same day, I get onto a run that is just barely sub 9 pace entering level 17. However, I then proceed to do this. Taking a page out of level 4's new strategy, I used a floor clip to save a bit of time at the start of the level, making it much easier to hit the laser cycle later on. The player doesn't stand on the thin wall here because it doesn't interact with any of the floor test points when standing in this position. By walking forward, the middle test point then intersects with the wall, causing the player to fall through the floor. And it perfectly works out that you are able to clip through the pocket here after doing more digging. I didn't really save much over Connor due to my sloppy gameplay afterwards, but I still entered level 18 on sub 9 pace, even without Fast 19. Level 18 was fine, but level 19 was sloppy, and I missed fast 901.167. May 15th, Connor gets a run that starts off poorly, but he saves a bunch of time in level 17 with the new strategy, and enters level 19 barely on sub 9 pace without needing fast 15. However, it's just a bit too slow, and he opts to not do the sidewall climb, ending with a PB of 901.7. Just short again. Thankfully, later that same day, one of us would finally pull it off.